Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield's live stream. I'm Keith Isles and this is my first ever live stream. So we are going to have a chat about Flash Gordon, and I've got some very distinguished guests to introduce for this. Before I do, a couple of quick thanks to some helped in the production. I want to thank Dan Hay, Paul Dewlake, Neil Myers, and Ive and Tara and Ashenden, who helped us with the performances there for that intro, which hopefully you heard. So first of all, joining me tonight, I have the mega geek himself, director of and producer and creator of Rebecca Gold, the web series, the man who encouraged me to do this live stream. So welcome, Ian David Diaz.
Sorry, I must apologize for encouraging you to come on to do this live stream.
Nothing wrong with a bit of encouragement.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm raring to go. Yeah,
raring to talk some Flash, because Gordon is live indeed. Yeah. So I looked to see who we could get on the stream for tonight in terms of special guests. I feel very honored about the next two guests that we have. I am lucky enough to have the director of the 2017 feature Life After Flash, Lisa Downs. Welcome.
Hello.
Lisa.
Thank you for having me. Very exciting. Live YouTube.
Live.
I've never done this before either.
Exactly. It's scary. It's like film instead of film. It's really really quite nerve-wracking. But and last but by no means least, we have filmmaker and author of the forthcoming book, Flash Gordon, the official making of film, John Walsh. Welcome, John.
Hello. Thanks for having me here. I'm a bit of an old hand at this. I do a lot of live stuff, so that's putting the bar very high. So if I make any faux pas, you can come my way.
That's why you're the only one that prepared with a Flash Gordon t-shirt.
That's right.
I feel underdressed.
Right.
Well done. Bonus point.
Exactly. Extra one for the Flash Gordon t.
Yep.
I mean,
he gets a cool point there. Cool point for you, mate.
So I wanted to kick things really by, obviously we're all filmmakers here. Obviously some are more successful than others, but you know, we the like the 1980 film, or we wouldn't be. So whether I could ask each of you how you found Flash Gordon, and you know, your experience when you first saw it, and you think it's got a following today. We could start with you, Lisa.
You can. What was really interesting about interviewing all the people that we did for Life After Flash was hearing the same story, really, with how people had first saw the film. It was like I was like 8 or 9. I went to the cinema with my dad. The music and the colors, and I didn't have that experience, and I really wish I did. But for me, I was not the age that I wasn't born when it came out, so I didn't have that theater experience. And so for me, it was just something that I had associated with, like it was on TV at Christmas, and it just was a film that I would watch all the time. I don't remember the first time I saw it, but I remember just having it part of my childhood. It was just there, you know. It was one of these like staple films that I associate with growing up and wanting to be in this film. And so yeah, it was a pretty special film in my childhood.
Wow, thank God for home video. Yes. So
I'm just muting myself because my dogs are going crazy, so I'll let the other dancer.
That's fine. That's the beauty of streaming. There you go. John, what about you, sir? What were your initial experiences with Gordon, the 1980 movie?
Well, I was collecting Star Wars figures. I was collecting the bubblegum cards, the collector's cards, and so on. So when a new science fiction film was coming out, I went to an all-boys school, so we were always talking about the spaceships, the robots, the special effects. And we knew there was going to be lots of flying in Flash Gordon. We knew that there was going to be a big budget. So it wasn't the film that a lot of the boys at school were expecting. So it's, if you were expecting somewhere between Superman for the flying and Empire Strikes Back for special effects, then Flash Gordon doesn't sit in either sort of camp very comfortably.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why it landed very uncomfortably with a sort of juvenile male audience. But I know I like the film. It was hard to get to see it in theaters. I think VHS for a lot of people was the best place to see it. And I spoke to Matt Ferguson, who did the new poster design for Studio Canal. He said that he was born at home because his dad refused to go to the hospital with his mum when he was born, because he was watching the premiere of Flash Gordon at Christmas on the BBC. So he was born at home because of it. So, people have these particular stories that are normally very positive around Flash. But, like a good wine, it's kind of lasted the 40 years it's taken to become an overnight success. Who'd have thunk it?
I know. Who would have thought? What about you, Mega Geek?
Before I start, I'd just like to say thanks for joining us, Mr. Brown, Paul, and Retro, and is that Jason? Thanks for joining us, guys.
We can see all your messages. Hello.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
For your nice message.
Yes. What did I think when I first saw it? Well, I'm so old that I saw it in the cinema, would you believe, as a kid. But to tell you the truth, guys, I really didn't think much of it when I saw it for the same reasons John said. I was expecting the special effects to be of the class of Empire Strikes Back, and I was expecting it to be, more of what we had at that time. I mean, I didn't dislike it. I did like it, but I think I grew to like it more as I got older, because you appreciated how it was kind of, when I look at it now, it kind of reminds me of Batman, of the 60s Batman, you know what I mean, that kind of tone that it had. But as I said, the more I watched it as an adult, the more I liked it. Oh, hello.
Naughty. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
May I ask a question?
Go on then.
If you didn't think much of it when you saw it in the cinema, how long was it until you saw it again? And were you a bit reluctant? You were like, oh, I suppose I'll watch it again. And when did it change?
Well, listen, I grew up in the time when I used to go to cinemas with flea pits, right? So when I saw it, it was basically mono sound. That it was actually shot, it was on film, and the film was weaving. It was all crap all over the film and stuff. Because in those days, you really couldn't afford to go up to the West End. You went to the local cinema, which was 50 pence. And the second time I saw it was at Christmas time, when it was on Christmas. I think it was on ITV. And I saw it again, and that's when I got the humor. When I was watching, I was like, "This is funny. This film is funny, man." And that's when I got it. And then I've watched it multiple times since then in various forms. ITV. I saw it on VHS at one point, and last time I saw it was on a download. And now I'm waiting for my special edition disc to come, so I'll be watching it hopefully in 4K soon.
Which one did you order?
The one that Keith recommended. Keith recommended that one. That one behind Keith. That one there. So
it's good.
That's the best one. Get that one, yes, because it's got.
It brings a tear to your eye when you.
Oh, really? But as I said, I am a huge fan, and the stuff that I've learned about the film, I'm amazed. I didn't know that Sam Jones's voice was dubbed. Did not know that at all. As I said, right, I've delved deeply into Flash Gordon and read a lot of stuff about behind the scenes and how there was a lot of friction between Sam Jones and the producer and all that stuff. So it makes it more interesting for me. But I must say, I really love the movie now because I've grown to appreciate it. So there you go.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And did you guys, I mean, were you aware of, before you saw this film of Gordon, were you aware of the legacy that it had previously?
As
previous?
in, like the Buster Crab.
Yeah,
the all serials and the
yes.
the
Do you know what?
series and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Oh,
before
my
the
camera.
film, before we went to see the film, because my brother took me to see it in the Flea Pit Cinema, we used to watch it. It used to be on BBC One Saturdays, and it used to be on BBC Two. They used to show the serials. Sometimes they show 2 episodes together, or sometimes they'll show 1 episode, and you have to wait till next Saturday to see it, the black and white version. I don't know if you guys remember that being shown on BBC Two. Yeah, well, I think it was Saturdays, or it was during the holidays.
On half terms, because it was cheap.
Yeah,
the BBC used to buy programs in bulk, so it's like buying by the yard. So when you go to studios and get like a big premiere box set, they'll throw in lots of stuff for free. So Rocket Man, sometimes foreign cartoons would be thrown in, and children's programming would sometimes get dumped on with Flash Gordon.
Yeah,
but I mean, there's a big disconnect between the cinema serial, which was melodrama, and the theatrical film, which was kind of like a European camp comedy. And so I think people who are expecting like an upgraded color version of the cinema serial, which was melodrama, which would what Dino had commissioned effectively, I think were kind of a little bit put out that they got something which resembled sort of Are You Being Served on Holiday in Space? Perhaps.
Yeah.
No,
I've still never seen anything else. I've never seen any of the Buster Crab. Nothing.
You should. It's
I know.
really
I feel like I should, but I still have just never seen it. So that's an interesting point, I guess. You know, when you hear that there's like a remake happening now, everyone's up in arms. But I guess that happened to the people that loved the Buster Crab, and then they go and see this thing in the cinema and go.
Well, Buster Crab was meant to be in the Flash Gordon 1980 film, and there was a bit of a fracas about it, and then it didn't happen. But he did pop up in Buck Rogers on TV. Buck Rogers in the 25th century. And
the guy was fit. He had the muscle. He still had muscles and stuff, wasn't he? When he was Buck Rogers, I was like, this guy was the guy in the black and white stuff. He looked great. He looked absolutely great, didn't he? Wow.
No,
but I think there's a whole thing around Flash Gordon of how can you create a franchise, because that's what Dino wanted. You know, Dino intended to buy Pinewood Studios and make 3 films back to back. So you know, there was a real sense of, as a producer, he was at that point in his career where he wanted to franchise things. And I mean, you know, he took on other people's franchises. Halloween he took on after Halloween 1, took Evil Dead on for part 2, the Amityville from part 2 onwards. But it was only when he took Hannibal back, because he did the original Silence of the Lambs film, Manhunter, that he finally got the franchise he's always wanted to do. Because he did Manhunter, but he turned down Silence of the Lambs, but then came back on to Hannibal. So, you know, producers like Dino, who are really prolific, are always looking for a franchise, a workable franchise.
I love the fact, though, he wanted to buy the studio.
Yes.
You know, you never... He really went all out with everything he did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, who'd remake King Kong? Nobody but Dino. Who's going to buy Pinewood? Pinewood was in a terrible state at the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, for the book, we got access to the sort of Dino's paperwork and what went on. And it's amazing to think that was his 5-year plan for 3 films, and he was going to recast Sam even before he left. There was talks of recasting him.
Another thing that for me with Flash Gordon, which made me smile when I was watching the film, they had all these British stars in it. They had the guy that played Jason King, he was in it. Peter Wingard, and they had the guy from Blue Peter,
Peter Duncan.
Unfortunately, Peter Duncan, who got his hands. I laugh when we were in the cinema, we were killing ourselves laughing because Blue Peter was still on. He was still in Blue Peter at the time, and we were killing ourselves laughing when we saw him turn up.
What's that guy doing?
I don't know. and then we had the next James Bond, which we didn't know. At the time, we didn't know Timothy Dalton was going to be the next James Bond at the time. So, it brings back great memories for me.
I mean, I think one of the charms about the film is that I know it wasn't intended to be, but is a standalone film. You know, we have so many, you know, franchises with multiple sequels, etc. And Flash is one of film my childhood that was a standalone, a bit like the Black Hole. You sort of remember as those standalone films.
It wasn't intended to be, though. That was the thing. Flash was the first film. The second film was to be directed by Mike Hodges. Mike had suggested the director for the third film. You know, there's as much as it ended up being a standalone film, that wasn't the intention. You know, it's a great shame because it is a serial, it is a story like Tarzan and other great cinema serial stories that could have run and run. I mean, it's got more legs to it than James Bond in many ways. And, you know, James Bond's been running now furiously for so many years. And yet Flash, it's a shame. It flash in the pan. Flash in the pan.
Flash in the pan. Indeed. Indeed. Just to read a few of the comments that we've got here. So Mr. Brown, it was a train wreck of a film that developed into something it wasn't intended to be. Yeah, fair comment.
That's true.
Jason Finn, he was lucky enough. Model maker Bill Pearson, who worked on Flash Gordon, he had some criticism of the movie. So Retro Reels, there you go, John. Somebody's saying here that they're looking forward to the book. They've pre-ordered it on Amazon. So well done. I highly recommend to anyone out there as well that you get the documentary as well, Lisa's documentary, Life After Flash, because I had not seen it until I reviewed the set. And I know it's been available on streaming, and it was at Fright Fest a couple of years back. But
it was,
I was somewhat moved by no spoilers, but go and check it out, folks. It's good. Daniel Leach is saying it can depend on mindset at the time that can sometimes also affect your opinions on films and TV. Very much a product of its time, perhaps, and we remember, where we were in our lives. That's fair comment. Lisa, I want to ask, how did you get? Did you get involved in making this documentary about Life After Flash?
It wasn't super intentional, to be honest. I hadn't kind of set out that I wanted to make a documentary about Flash Gordon. I was at a point in my career where I was trying to get my own projects off the ground, as opposed to kind of working for other companies. And I knew I wanted to do something that I was really passionate about. Like, I love documentaries. I would love to do a documentary. And I happened to be talking to a friend of mine, a girl called Lisa Doyle, who's a producer for The Jump, that, the ski jump celebrity show. And Sam was on it, but Sam never actually made it to the screen because he, as most people do, had his shoulder, ended up in hospital, never actually made it onto the show, but she got to know him while he was recuperating. And when I was chatting to her at this birthday party, she had mentioned that. And I was really disappointed because about 2 years prior, I saw that Sam and Melody were at a Comic-Con in London, and I didn't find out until about a week later. And I was so disappointed. So we just really started chatting about how much we loved the film. And I hadn't, apart from Ted, seen anything that Sam was in, didn't know anything else that he had done, probably like a lot of people. But you go to his IMDb and he has, TV shows and movies, and he's got a really big career. But I just didn't know what had happened to him. And so I said, wouldn't it be great to do a documentary about Sam? She said, well, why don't you write something up? I wrote a proposal. She sent it to his then agent. We Skyped. And that was October 2014. And in January 2015, we flew to Laredo in Texas to meet with him for the first time, do the interview. So there's the interview in the documentary where he's got all the memorabilia lined up next to him, was the very, very first day that we met him when we shot that interview. And that was a mix of not only doing the interview, but to get some footage for a crowdfunding campaign, like the video and stuff. And at first it started off a film about him, but then because the crux of where his life happened on set, it's like, if we're going to talk about that, let's talk to Melody. And what did she think about the experience? And did she notice anything between him and Dino? And then obviously if you talk to Melody, you start talking about the film, and then that happened with everyone. And so it grew into this celebration, but it did really start from a drunken birthday party conversation of we should do it.
Well, so I envy you. I would
Great
love
story.
to have done It is.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
It was very organic and like right time, right place, and it was perfect because I love the film, and finally I was able to like really sink my teeth into something that I it was like a roller coaster experience.
I remember when I went to a Comic-Con, it might be the same Comic-Con you were talking about, the one you missed, and Melody was there, but she was sitting at a table and nobody was there to see her. I remember 2 people were there and the tables were empty. It was her one and Yapet Koto from Alien.
Oh,
and
Wow.
me and my brother felt so sorry for them. We went up to Yapet and we said, "You're great." We shook his hand and he was very, very happy. Actually, he looked like he was on drugs, but hey. But we went up to Melanie and we shook her hand as well, and she was pretty chuffed that we made the effort to talk to her. And we talked to her extensively about Flash, and apparently she loved the whole thing.
yeah, so talented, and she loves talking about it, which is really nice, and I think that comes across whenever you see her talk.
Yeah.
The downside of Comic-Con, though, whenever I've seen her at one, there's always so many options, isn't there, for people?
Yeah.
And there's only so much money to
Yeah.
go around. But yeah, if anyone watching goes to a Comic-Con, Melody's worth.
She is.
Yeah.
I think they had Burt
Yeah.
Reynolds there that year at one point. I think everybody was going to Burt Reynolds.
Don't make me feel bad for missing it.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah.
What about you, John? The book, the forthcoming book. How did you get involved in that?
Well, I did a book a couple of years ago. I don't know if you see it behind me there. Harryhausen, The Lost Movies. It's the one I'm seeing up the wall. Till way up there. Can you see it? That one with the green cover.
There you go.
And I was doing a panel at Comic-Con and about the book, and it was all about the unmade films of Ray Harryhausen and so on. And the publisher was asking me about what to do next because the book was doing very well. And I said, "Oh no, that's just a one-off. I'm not looking to do more books because I'm a trustee of the Harryhausen Foundation. I was doing this as a fundraiser for the foundation for creature restoration and also as a profile raiser because it was Ray's centenary this year. And we may be making that into a documentary now, the Harryhausen, The Lost Movies. But the publisher said, "Oh no, do another book." And they said, possibly another Harryhausen book. And I said, "Well, look, it was coming to the end of 2018 when I started writing the book. So by Comic-Con 2019, I was back again. This is San Diego for my second panel with the finished book. I was showing it around to people. And I said to the publisher, next year is the 40th anniversary for Flash Gordon." And they were like, "Yeah." They were like, "Yeah." Literally, arms folded. I was like, "Well, I thought it'd be a good idea to do a making of book." They were like, And because people have been trying to do a making of book for decades for Flash Gordon. I didn't know this. And they said, "Well, we've tried to do it ourselves. Titan Books make books on all of the well-known makings of. Making of Aliens is just out at the moment. You can buy the making of Star Trek. The motion picture is out. I think it's number 1 at the moment. So they're known for doing these big coffee table books of makings of. And they said, if you think you can get the rights, we'll publish it in a heartbeat." And me, Mr. Arrogant, thought, "I'll get the rights for that. I know what to do. I can ring some people." So I spoke to I have a representative at Kleinberg Lang. I hope they don't mind me name dropping them in Los Angeles. They represent Ray Harryhausen and myself. And I said, "Look, we are interested in doing something here, but what's the rights situation?" And they had a look around for us, came back and said it's a real hornet's nest because you have a situation where the film is owned by Universal Pictures. The rights, the underlying rights holder is King Features, which is part of Hearst Publications and the media magnets from years ago. And the assets for the project are kind of a bit dispersed, So I was like, "Okay, well, look, we'll try and do this." The gauntlet had been laid down to try and get the rights. So it took me 8 months. I negotiated with all parties, and finally we got them to agree for the very first time to do an official making of book through Titan Books with me as the sole author, which was quite nice because there was lots of people who wanted to come on board. The Lost Movies book was an investigation into why Ray Harryhausen hadn't made the films he should have made and what went wrong. And I think rather than have a fan write this book, they wanted somebody who would go in and do effectively like, one of those true crime podcasts where you look at the story in a new light, with a new perspective. And so we got official sign-off from King Features, and we have an official license to create the book. But then the real work started finding the assets for the book, because there is so much behind the scenes photography that's never been published, it's never been printed. It's still not available. You know, we worked with Studio Canal. They had a few bits and pieces, and I shared some of them for the little leaflet book, little preview mini title booklet. But the good stuff, you know, is going to be in the book on the 27th of October. You'll all get to see behind the scenes test footage, deleted scenes, new pictures, stuff with Melody. She had one continuity Polaroid she let me scan for the book for a sequence that was abandoned involving her.
Right.
And, you know, it's the photos people want. They don't want to hear me gabbling on about, you know, how many foots per second and lots of special effects terminology. You want to see the photos. You want to see what nearly made it, what didn't make it, deleted scenes with special effects, alternative spaceships, alternative wood creature, you know, a wood thing that runs along. All those things that you hoped would be there, and I hoped would be there. I found. But it took almost longer to get the deal and find the assets than it did to write the book. The book kind of wrote itself, because once I had all of those and spoke to everyone involved, and luckily we spoke to everyone who's alive, and for the people who are sadly no longer with us, like Peter Wingard and others, we got interviews through their friends and family. Even Max von Sydow, I was in touch with his son Cedric, right up until when Max passed, and we sort of emailed questions and so on. So, and Peter Wingard, it's an unpublished interview. We've got one of his last, or I'm told it is his last. So I'm hopeful it will certainly quench the thirst of people who've always wanted the making of book from Flash Gordon.
Sure.
And I thought, would we be able to fill a 200-page book? And it got to the stage where I said to the publisher, I think we're going to need a bigger book.
They're like, cut stuff. Yeah.
You know, lots had to be parked. You know, we had so much beautiful photography and behind the scenes stuff. So we've got in all of the main stuff in really high resolution, in color where possible. Wow. And this was something that a lot of studio folk don't understand. Most photography on most films is done in color. It's not done as black and white. Most photography survives as black and white because 8x10s are printed as black and white and sent to newspapers. It's newspaper archives that tend to tie up with people like the Cobell collection and Getty Images. So those images that you know as being black and white stills were originally shot on color film. It's just that only the black and white prints mostly exist. So finding the color versions of those stills.
And I mean, what better movie to have pictures, because it's such a colorful movie, and this will work as your book will work as a really good companion piece with Lisa's film. You know, because Lisa, you must have got some of the final interviews with some of those actors as well. Yeah.
I mean, we were Peter Wingard's last on-screen appearance, which is quite surreal. You know, he was just everything you would imagine him to be. I never managed to beat Max von Sydow, which I would have absolutely loved to. But, you know, it's hard when you're doing either a book or a film on something that's nearly 40 years old, you know, unless everyone's kind of 20 when they make it. It's tough. So, no, but I think we have a common friend, John, because I think Bob Lindenmeyer helped you with your book as well, who's the prop collector in the documentary. And it's so nice to, you know, when you do these projects, meet these other Flash fans. And if anyone's seen the documentary, you'll see his amazing collection of, and there were all so many photos I wanted to use in the documentary, but I couldn't get the permission because we couldn't work out who took the photo. And it just, I mean, as you say, it's such a minefield of clearances that, you know, to have the book is a godsend to Flash fans to see all of that, you know.
Thanks.
I love that you both keep
about Bob Linden there. Bob Linden there is worth a particular reference here. He's mentioned more than any other person in the book, because I agreed with collectors who gave us their images, even though they're owned by the studios. You know, it's not ownership thing. Bob can't put them in a book and sell it, but then the studio can't come and kick his door in and take the photos. And normally for these big books, at the back in a little big block of text, they'll say, thanks, John Smith and Bob Lindermeyer. So I was like, no, I said to the publisher, if we're going to do this, I want everyone credited on every single page where they've given us an image. And if it means crediting several times. So Bob gets mentioned more than anyone else in the book, more than Dino, more than Mike Hodges or Sam Jones. And I've kind of elevated him from prop collector to curator. I think he's the unofficial curator of the Flash Gordon universe.
He is.
Really is.
And if anyone's seen the bonus feature of that kind of 14-minute behind the scenes featurette, Bob found it, or he had it. He reached out to me when I had started doing the crowdfunding, and he was like, I have this VHS which doesn't have any labels and it doesn't have anything like on it. I found it on a table at a prop thing 20 years ago or whatever it was. And it was that, and I had spent like a year and a half trying to find out who owned the rights to that, and I just thought, I'll just use it. If I get sued, I'll find out who owns it. So it's
Perfect.
amazing to have these people that love film so much will just have these gold mines of photos and props, and it's amazing.
I think the assumption,
I
think the assumption was that Dino's still involved in the film, but Dino's interest, sorry, Ian, to cut across you there.
That's all right.
Dino's interest in the film kind of ended really abruptly. And I mean, it's in the book, you'll read it in October, but the story of Dino's relationship with Flash over the years has sort of changed significantly.
But also a lot of people seem to credit Tarantino for, when he has his albums, when he has the music in his films and they have the sound bites from the film. And a lot of people think it started from there, but it didn't. It started from the Queen album. The Queen album had the sound bites. They were one of the very first, well, I'm guessing, obviously, one of the very first albums that I heard on vinyl that had the sound bites. And in those days that you couldn't see clips on YouTube, you had to rely on TV to see clips. But when you listen to the vinyl and you're in your bed and you've got these huge headphones on, because it was the 80s, it takes you back to the film when you hear those clips. And that's why those quotes are so successful, because of that album, because of the Queen album, so there you go. I mean, I don't know if they deliberately went out of the way to do that, but it was a stroke of genius or a stroke of genius accident. Do you know what I mean? Which made that album incredible.
The deal they had to deliver something of a certain length, and there wasn't enough incidental music from what they put together from the score. So rather than include some of Howard Blake's recording sessions, they I'm not going to say padded it out. That seems really unfair. But they added the dialogue to increase the length of the master they delivered to EMI, because there was a minimum requirement that an album had to run for. Superb. I mean, there's no one of the myths of Flash Gordon, which I can exclusively reveal here, has been debunked. And I hope I don't get kind of hashtagged by angry Queen fans now. It's not true that Freddie Mercury designed the album cover. No, it's completely not true.
Scandal.
I mean, he's brilliant. No disrespect to Freddie Mercury. He was a genius walking the earth. What happened was Freddie Mercury suggested that they use Lawrence Noble, who was one of the poster artists, designs for the album. And everyone said, that's a great idea, Freddie. And of course, that became Freddie designed the album. He didn't. He suggested using someone's existing design for one of the posters as the album cover. And so Lawrence Noble was never credited anywhere in the sleeve notes. So, of course, I had to be super careful with this. I had to make sure that what I was being told by Mr. Noble himself was completely accurate and fair and so on, because we don't want people returning their albums to HMV and R price for a refund. And it turns out it was true. So we're able to straighten out those little niggling parts of the official story where sometimes when there's a vacuum, people can fill in the past, and it sometimes saves themselves. So it's nice to kind of get some of that on the straight and narrow.
No, absolutely. And of course, the Queen album is indeed available on that John Canal 5-disc, which obviously has your from your book and Lisa's doc. Just so I'm not the people online here. Obviously, I put this up a while ago. It's about, of course, Timothy Dalton and James Bond, but Mr. Brown there points out that Tope actually influenced which came following year. And of course, Max von Sydow actually did play Blofeld in Never Say Never Again. So it's, you know, a few connections there along. So that's.
And also Queen should have done a Bond theme. And I don't understand why they haven't. But
well, maybe they were busy.
Yeah.
But you know what? Another thing that I really like about this film is that the music, right? Just like the film, it was very different to the films that were coming out those, as I said, previous years or years. Like you had you know, Star Wars, and they had a Pacific look, and I think it was interesting that when they made this film, they went completely the other way. Because if you look at all the sci-fis that were coming out, they had orchestral music. It was all serious. You know, the designs were all battered, like they were trying to copy Star Wars. But this was very different. The designs, the actual sets, they're all colorful. They went completely the other way. And with the soundtrack, they had Queen. So this is what makes this film unique. And as I said, throughout the years, you only realize that. As a kid, you don't realize it. But throughout the years, you realize how unique the film is. And that's how the love grows for this film. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, just like Paul has summed it up perfectly in that quote there.
I was going to say Dino famously hated the music. You know, when we interviewed Brian, when Dino said it's just not for me, Mike had to kind of tap him and go, just don't worry, let me have a word. You know, and it wasn't until the film was finished that Dino actually appreciated it.
I think there was a compromise somewhere in the middle, wasn't there? Because originally Queen suggested an orchestrator who kind of dropped the baton. I think people won't mind me naming Paul Buckmaster was originally coming in to do some orchestral stuff so that the film wouldn't be wall to wall to the rock opera. But Howard Blake did a brilliant job, of course, of filling in those gaps. And it's a shame that I said to Studio Canal, you should get Howard Blake's score because it is available on CD to accompany the box sets.
He would have loved that.
Oh, you know, and
I would have loved that.
And you know, it deserves it. You know, if you haven't got Howard Blake's score, have a look on eBay and see if you can find it because it's beautiful and it's all from Queen's music, though, isn't it, Lisa? I mean, it's all of the music is 100% Queen. But Howard Blake did his magical stuff.
He did score what he had said was he did score the whole film in 10 days, nearly died, but scored it. And then Queen did take certain scenes that they wanted to do their own thing too. Like Brian said, I really want to do the battle scene, and Freddie Mercury wanted to do kind of Aura's theme. But then they took Howard's score and kind of embellished it with their additions and their guitar and their rockness. So it is a mix, and I feel like that's why Howard gets overshadowed a lot with the fact that they promote it being Queen's score. But it was, you know, Howard showed me that huge like orchestral pages and pages, like 500 pages of orchestral score that then they took and did their own thing with. So it's an interesting one because obviously a film, not to take away what Queen did, but you know, I feel like when you obviously have Queen as music by Queen, Howard did do an awful lot with that, and I agree it would be amazing to have Howard score in as a release as part of it because it is such a special thing in its own right.
Well, when the film was originally dubbed, there was more Howard Blake stuff in there. When it failed to kind of connect with audiences. And you can see clips of this on YouTube as well, the versions with and without. So when Ming first enters Ming's palace, the one we know now is with Queen's music and guitars and so on. There was a more traditional version of it in the original sound dub, and it was Howard Blake's version. It would be lovely to have both versions of the film, wouldn't it, on separate discs? Gosh, we're greedy.
Funny. Thinking of that scene, though, you can't imagine it without like kind of synth. Sound
it sound like Crossroads, but yeah,
sure,
it did work.
The film wouldn't have been the film without the score, without Queen by any means. They took it to another level, but I think Howard is often overlooked with how much work he did.
Queen added the tone to the movie. The music is so important when it comes to movies. If the music is not right, then it kind of brings things slightly down. But if you've got the right score, it adds the tone to the film. A lot of tone to the film, and you get used to it. Like, I mean, you just got to mention Raiders of the Lost Ark, or anything that Johnny has done. But Queen was in a league of their own when they did this film. Also, I'd just like to mention how perfect was that casting for Ming.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't think of anyone that could play that part apart from Max.
I think everyone was spot on with the casting. And actually, I think Mr. Brown just said, did anything on this movie go correctly? That is probably the only thing that went right, was they cast really well. But even having said that, like Dale Arden was another actress. She was on set. They had started, and personal issues got in the way. And so they called up Melody, and that's why it was such a short turnaround of literally that day she flew out, because it was a very last minute change.
But it wasn't chaotic, though. This is the thing. I think a lot of people think what went wrong, there was lots of stupidity, or there was lots of people who were inexperienced and so on. There's a chapter in my book called Bigger Than Star Wars. Flash Gordon, by every measure, was bigger than Star Wars. It had a bigger budget by 3 times. It had a bigger crew. It had more FX by, I think, 3.5 times. What it didn't have, and it's a crucial thing you must have when you have a lot of money, not enough time. Not enough time. So you get to a situation where you're going into dailies or rushes. If it's in focus and it's not scratched, that's printed and added to the main edits. So that gets cut into the negative. So if you go down to George Lucas, even on the first Star Wars film, he was looking over and over and over at all the FX stuff that was done with motion control, computer movement cameras, to check that all of the renders and all the composites were as spot on as they could be, and throwing out things until they got them right. Flash Gordon, there was no time for motion control. There's no motion control there. There's no sophisticated flying using the Zoptic front projection system from Superman, even though they had some of the FX people from it. There was simply no time. And Mike was cutting out pages as he was, he worked with me closely in the book. He's written the foreword, and he gave me sort of personal notes and diaries. And everything was about, right, how can we save some time from this? So the whole production was like this to-do list. They pulled out characters. Lion Man was pulled out. Other characters were pulled out. Simply, how can we save some time from this so we can get it completed in the 17-week schedule? It was an enormous task. The ending of the film was chopped. That crashing the wedding was just a part of it. There was a whole proper part to the ending. Ming wasn't meant to be skewered by that rocket. And it's frustrating to think you've waited for so long. I feel sorry for Dino. He waited so long. It cost so much money. The license for it was, expensive. And so, you've waited that long to do it. And it was a childhood love of his. He had Flash Gordon as comic strips, and it translates into Italian. That when you're finally there and you've got all the money you need, you've got no time. Such a shame.
Why was that, though? I mean, I mean, the rumors I heard about Dino is that he's a penny pincher, and that's not true.
Not true. Not true.
Why is it they didn't have enough time, though? I don't understand. I mean, if it cost that amount of money, who was the one that was scheduling this film? I mean,
right. If you know what a negative pickup is, and if you know what a negative pickup is, so it's simply that, if you've gone to get the money loaned from banks on the agreement that the studio will pay you when you deliver on a certain date, you can't be late for that date. So same thing happened on Superman movie. Alexander Solkind went to different European banks, put the money together for his fabulous movie. When he delivered then to Warner Brothers, they paid him his fee plus the budget back and so on. So Dino was in a position where the film had to be scheduled for a Christmas release in 1980. Theaters were waiting for it. And it was simply the clock was ticking. By the time he got the studio space he needed, he didn't actually get the studio space he needed. He needed Pinewood in its entirety or something similar. Well, there wasn't anything similar. So he was hanging between several studios, including an old airplane hangar. So what could go wrong did go wrong in that sense. And the time just eats away. The director, who's originally going to be on, Nick Rogue, left the project. There's a DVD extra I helped Studio Canal with there. When Mike came on, Mike Hodges, that didn't go well either. Mike got sacked. So, there was all sorts of problems, because when you're setting something up for the first time, it's like setting up an enormous company. If the 4 of us were to set up a company now, then year one's going to be crazy because we all have our own personalities and issues and problems and so on. If we have a deadline, so you know, let's do it.
Yeah, you know, let's do it.
Dino has about 500 films to his credit, so he knew what he was doing, but it was a time issue, not a money issue.
Yeah, totally understand. Sorry, go ahead.
Just on that point that Mike Hodges got fired, I don't think that's a point that many people know, but I just wanted to comment on it because when I was interviewing Peter Wingard, he had said when they found out that happened to Mike, all the cast were just behind Mike 100% and just said it's not going to happen, and you know, F you, Dino, we're not going to do it if Mike isn't on it, which I thought was really
nice,
sweet, and shows kind of that relationship that they all had. And I think that comes across when you watch the film, because I didn't know that until Peter Wingard said it. I was like, scoop, what happened? But I thought that was really sweet that they just said, no, we're not having it, he's staying.
Also, it feels like happy accidents, really, because like there are a lot of films like that didn't have enough time and they did their best, and suddenly it's a huge hit. Well, I'm assuming Flash was a huge hit because I don't really know the history about how much money it made, whatever. It wasn't lost money. Yeah. But with good films, and let's face it, this is a good film. It takes years for it to be appreciated, like Blade Runner and Shawshank Redemption and countless movies. But one thing for sure is it's a good movie and it's very entertaining, and it captured the heart of thousands of fans out there. You know, as I said, with me, you know, I learned to appreciate it, and I love the movie now. So, you know, they did something right. Come on, let's face it. You know,
it's a shame that Dino, because even though it was re-released in 2007, it's a shame that Dino isn't around to see it how it is today, with how people feel about it and its status. That, you know, that also, is quite disappointing.
I am so old that I recognize the actor that fall on his sword. I can't remember his name.
George Harris.
The guy had,
Fake, wasn't he?
Yes. But he was the very first black actor to lead a detective show on ITV, and the show was called Wilcott.
There you
go. So I, you know, when I was watching that film, even as a kid, because I remember Wilcott, when I was watching it when they first broadcast it, and I remember, oh, that's that guy who played Wilcott. So you know, it's all these little things that you spot when you're watching the movie.
And another bit of trivia about that as well is that character, the one, you know, fall on your sword, throw yourself on, is actually Prince Thun. And Prince Thun was supposed to be the lion character from the comics and the animated series and all of that sort of thing. So so it's interesting that even though they didn't use the lion character, as John mentioned earlier, that they did still use the original character name rather than making up some for that character.
Yeah.
In the original script, he was meant to not be run through at the palace. He was meant to be, unbelievably, beheaded. And it's just like, really? That was and the lion character as well, I think it was because he's a hangover as well from the comic strip. We have our production art for how the lion character was going to look. And he looked a cross between sort of Chewbacca and the cowardly lion from Wizard of Oz. Which, you know, I'm not knocking either of those, but it's a shame because he was going to be in the Hawk City. There was a whole thing where Flash rescues him from Aboria. It's what a shame.
Also, another thing that really made me smile as well is how my dad always used to want to watch it when it was on TV, and I figured that out when I was a kid. I couldn't figure it out, but now when you watch it, you're like, these women are so hot in this movie. That's why my dad wanted to watch it.
My dad was the one who took me to see it, and I think now I probably understand why. But
Americans didn't like it because the Midwestern America is quite prurient even now. You can like the following year, Clash of the Titans came out, and the Medusa scene, if we all remember that, Medusa and Perseus looking like he stepped out of a kind of a aerosol commercial, you know, with his lovely hair all bouffoned. And he cuts off Medusa's head in a really graphic scene. Well, the censors in Europe were quite worried about the violence, but in America they weren't bothered. They were more bothered that Medusa wasn't wearing anything. You could see her chest, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
So Americans are really much more critical of films from Europe or outside of America that are playful and suggestive when it comes to themes of sexuality and sexualness. And the characters, I mean, Ming has a harem. Those women are all...
Yeah.
And, lovely Princess Aura, she's having favors with lots of the gentlemen that she meets, whether it's the Doctor or Prince Baron or Flash, or she says to her father, I want him. And he's like, well, no, I'm going to execute him. But she gets him anyway. And it's like the whole thing seems to be like this one big sort of sexual fantasy.
Yeah,
indeed. And it's funny actually go and see it. Obviously, because of doing the review to the cinema to see a re-release of it recently in 4K projection at a cinema, but they actually had a disclaimer saying that it may contain content that people find inappropriate nowadays, and
then they shouldn't be watching it.
Exactly. My thoughts, exactly.
That's not to do with the sexual content. That's to do with cultural appropriation. Because Max von Sydow, who's portraying the original character from 1936 version of Flash Gordon, Ming,
played by Charles Middleton.
That's right. But in the comic strip from in the early 30s, when it was newspapers, the big enemy for America was Red China.
Yeah,
and that's how they used to refer to China, as Red China. So Ming is based on a Red China style figure, but of course Max von Sydow is. His eye makeup has given him a sort of a Southeast Asian look. And actually the warning is that it's not that everyone looks like sex dolls. It's that there's some cultural appropriation going on. And, I think we can be sensitive to that, because I'm fine with that being a disclaimer, in the same way if a film has photosensitive epilepsy issues with flashing. I think it'd be wrong to take the film off. But I think it's fine for us to have a discussion about it and say that we would do things differently, or we maybe cast an actor from that region if we thought we could. But Dumbo's got the same issue, Dumbo, the Disney original film from the 1940s. So and it's to do with the representation of black crows and black men in singing groups.
I know, but still though, they should still allow those films, because it was made for at a time, and it wasn't insulting. And I don't understand this PC culture that we got today, but we won't go down that road.
Well, I mean,
so.
to be fair though, they are allowing the films to be shown. They're just putting that disclaimer.
Yeah, okay. I think that's fair enough. I think that's fair enough.
So
okay.
Which is fine. And it's like you were saying in terms of casting. What are we saw in the film was how much. The characters, everybody in it, how much the whole film looked like the comic strip.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they did that very well in the 30s as well, because the Buster Crab also had that look, but they were in black and white. So very full and the red, gold, and green. It's a massively colourful movie, and that's why it looks great on 4K. To be fair,
it does, and it's
an odd mix of styles, though, isn't it? Because the 1930s one looks 1930s because it's 1930s, and yet you've got a film that's clearly set in the 80s. Because when Sam pulls up to the airstrip, he's in an 80s car, and he looks like a man from the 80s. Looks really smart, but suddenly he's in a spaceship that looks like it's from the 1930s. And that's odd. Zarkov was meant to be working for NASA, so the technology, it's odd. It's a question that John Graysmark had to answer at the time, and he there is a kind of a logical reason for it. He talks about it in the book at great length, but that's odd. And I think that didn't fit right with audiences. Had the film been set in the 30s, I think it would have got more of a pass, and I think it would have been lovely.
What you talking about? Are you talking about Zarkov's ship, the ship that got him there? No, that didn't look like it was from the 30s. That actually looked like it was from the 80s.
No, John Graysmark said that he designed that to look like the 1930s.
Wow, did he? Well, it didn't come across that way.
And look at War Rocket Ajax.
I like that ship. I love that ship.
It looks like a fender bender from Chrysler.
No, but what I'm saying is that it makes sense that it came from that world. those ships came from that world.
Hmm.
Even though it looks very steampunkish, it still made sense that it was in that world. But Zarkov's spaceship, that didn't look like it came from that world at all, in my opinion, of course.
Well, that's the point,
I
though,
thought
that John's making, because he's saying that obviously you had the design of everything on Mongo and in that galaxy, but the original Buster Crab movies were contemporary, so they were set, before they went to space. It was the 1930s, whereas what you're saying, John, is clearly the bit before Flash and Del and Zarkov take off is clearly set in the 80s. When you look at, that's the reason they changed Flash from being a polo sports player to an American football player to sort of contemporize it. That's what you meant, right, John?
Yeah, that's right. And we had the space shuttle. I think Moonraker was already out. The space shuttle had been in design since the early 1970s. So we're talking not even Apollo 11. We're talking space shuttle. Think Capricorn 1.
Love that film.
It's a small point, but I love that film too. I also like Saturn 3. So I often get
I didn't like Saturn 3. I didn't like Saturn 3 at all.
Lisa.
Yes.
Lisa, sorry, I want to ask you. So you said as a girl, what Flash on home video, you were really already a fan of, were you a fan of Star Wars and Star Trek and science fiction, or was it specifically Flash that took your imagination?
I'd seen Star Trek because I watched whatever my dad watched. The Vikings with Michael Douglas, Kirk Douglas, just endless for me as a kid. Great film if no one's seen it. So Star Trek a little bit, but really I was the child of those staple, what you consider like the 80s kids classics, like Goonies, Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, Flight of the Navigator. Like they're my films with Flash Gordon. So I shouldn't say this live on YouTube. I've seen Star Wars, like it's good, but I couldn't tell you many characters, or I can't, I'll go and see it if a new one comes out, but it's not something that I had that experience with as a kid, so it's not really my bag.
Okay.
But for some reason I don't know if it's I connect with Flash because of the nostalgia element. I connect it with my childhood. If I saw it now as an adult for the first time, I'd probably think it was good. But what I love about it is I love remembering how I felt when I was watching it and how it made me feel growing up and wanting to be Dale and be in those costumes. And so that was what I connected with. But it's strange that it was probably a bit before my time in terms of seeing it in the cinema, but it was just because I associate it with, it's a Christmas film in the UK. If anyone looks at Twitter at Christmas, it's like everyone, Flash Gordon's on, quick, film 4, whatever.
That's true.
So
yeah,
so it was just what I had growing up. So that's why I love it so much. It's not that I'm like a huge science fiction fan or I'm a huge this fan. It's just I'm a fan of what I grew up with.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really. Yeah. In fact, Lee Anthony Davis's thing here about Timothy Dalton. What I always found interesting is when you say about used to like to play Dale Arden or whatever. When the kids used to play in the woods or in the streets when I was young, and if we played Flash Gordon, I actually. A lot of the guys wanted to obviously be Flash, but I was quite happy to play Baron because I actually thought, because of Timothy Dalton's performance, that Baron was a really cool character. And it is sort of weird. I'm a massive James Bond fan, and who knew at the time that 7 years later he was going to be the next and an underrated, in my opinion, Bond. So did
the guy that had the bald-head guy with the glasses on, and he I can't remember, he has a couple of lines. Is he the same actor that's in Empire Strikes Back? And I can't remember the other. It is the same actor.
Yeah. Sorry, he was one of the professors in Raiders of the Lost Ark that goes to.
Oh, you mean the Porkins?
Yes,
The guy who plays
yes.
Porkins.
Yeah, that was Munson, right? Have I got that right? I'm sure it was the guy who plays Munson. Yeah,
that's right.
But
he was in Raiders.
Yeah. But the thing about that film is, you know, as a kid growing up, because I come from a family of 7, big Catholic family, and it was one of those films that you just had to quote the lines from the film, you know, and we would all just laugh. Like, there's that line in it when he's pointing the gun at Munson and he says, "Get your toothbrush and whatever."
Yes.
You know, I mean, what a crazy line to say. And he just starts running, doesn't he? So, you know, and we just, as a family, we just thought that was the funniest thing ever. You know, as you know, you point the gun at someone and tell them get their toothbrush and get on the ship. You know what I mean? We just thought it was hilarious, absolutely hilarious. I mean, that's the genius of that film, in my opinion. The humor, the football fight is one of the highlights of the film. I love that fight because it was so stupid, but it was so unique and it was so genius at the time, right? I mean, who knows all those guards look like football players? Do you know what I mean?
So John, you might be able to answer this at that point Ian's making about the football fight. Am I correct in my understanding that was somewhat improvised at the last minute?
Yeah,
Really?
So Mike had all of all of that's improvised. So Mike had all of these complicated storyboards that have been created based on Lorenzo Semple Jr.'s first and only draft. Now, when Lorenzo Semple Jr., who wrote Batman in the 1960s and King Kong in 76, when he wrote the script, he said that he thought that either other writers would be attached or someone else would go through it. But Dino was like, "No, that's fine." He was like, "Wow, oh, really?" So and it wasn't unpolished, but he wasn't what Lorenzo thought was going to be the final shooting script, and within it was quite complicated sequences, so they were all storyboarded up. So Mike's going through all these storyboards. If for people who are listening, a pre-light is not what you do on a movie. Shots are lit individually on a major motion picture, and Gil Taylor, who was the director of photography, who'd come off of the original Star Wars, was used to lighting each shot individually, and it can take you up to 2 to 3 hours to set up an individual shot with your lamps on the floor. A pre-light is like a series like Heart to Heart or Dallas, when all of the lighting is in lighting grids in the ceiling, and there's no lamps on the floor, and it means it gives everything a really flat, horrible look. There's no shadow and contrast, everything else. So Mike had the decision whether to pre-light and sort of hammer through all the shots, and have Gil Taylor walk off, because I mean he's not going to do that. I mean, he works on the Omen as well. I mean, he's not coming on to do an episode of that. So you know, for exactly. Well, you know, you have to be in a position where, you know, for Mike, it was a case of keeping the crew together as well, because there was lots of rivalries between the American effects crew and the English effects crew and so on. So when it came down to that football sequence, as well as that fight, it was easier to do something that was a bit more improvised. In terms of cutting together, it doesn't entirely work in terms of continuity. If you watch it with the sound off, Mike won't mind me saying that, but it was a case of having to get the job done. You know, Mike said to me he thought the film was going to be and he said this to other people, so I'm not betraying a confidence. He thought it was so bad that he would never be seen, so it wouldn't affect his career. And it's the same ethos that Michael Caine has. He says yes to everything if it's $1 million offer, because if the film's bad, it won't get seen, and the $1 million goes in my bank. And often Michael Caine reads the script on the first day, and somebody said to him in an interview, "But what if there's nude shots?" And he said, "I don't mind. Pay me £1 million. They can see my arse." So, I mean, I'm not comparing myself to Michael Caine or Dino, but in TV, I've always said yes to different commissions from different channels, because I've always thought that I'll work it out. You know, I never say no to anything. And Mike just said yes, and then just on the day worked it out. Worked it out with the cameraman and everyone else, how they can get these pages done by the end of the day. So less a happy accident, more that Mike brought his documentary experience as a documentary filmmaker to bear. You look at Get Carter, it looks like an episode of
right film.
BBC documentary or something.
Film.
So Mike can kind of do it on the hoof and keep someone like Gil Taylor, who was a particular personality, kind of happy. So you know, Mike's job was making sure that everyone was happy, and so that was a great piece of directing from Mike Hodges, really.
I mean, it's so funny, that scene, especially when Dale Arden's doing that thing, go Flash go, and everything about that scene. As I said, it is one of the highlights of the movie, and I can't believe that was made up on the spot. What about the costumes? They looked like football players. I mean, come on. I mean, that was made up on the spot. That's absolutely crazy.
That kind of there was a vibe. The original. And I asked Studio Canal about the trims for the film. There were scenes that were planned and not shot. So, of course, they don't exist. But there were scenes that were shot. And Sam was filmed in the locker room of the football club that he's, what was it, Miami Jets? What was it? New York. I should know this. I wrote the book. What club is he in? Some American football club. New York Jets. There we are. So the original pre-title sequence, and there's a whole thing about the title sequence as well. That was last minute. There were shots of him in the football ground. There were shots of him with the press and so on. All of that was cut. But they tried to convey some of that imagery through the film because here's the theory, controversial theory. The film is actually a dream because everyone falls asleep before they land on Mongo. Everyone sleep now.
It's all a dream.
It's all a dream. So that's why you have these strange things mixed up in the dream. You have these kind of strange erotic phallic symbols. You have extreme versions of men and women dressed, and you have, if you like, something that represents Flash Gordon's own life, which is the other team, the quarterbacks, the rival team that look like these kind of pig guards. But the whole thing is possibly a dream. When will we wake up from this dream? I don't know. When will we wake up? There's constant references in the film to it being a dream state and a dream state throughout and asleep, because there's talk of being asleep. People fall asleep all the time. So I just chatted people.
Very true. Mine's
Sorry,
blown.
I have to keep my hands on my head just in case my brain blows up. But that's fascinating.
Lisa, absolutely. And Lisa, I believe in the documentary that Melody does talk about the fact that the whole Go Flash Go thing was something they sort of improvised at the time. Is that right? Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah.
Exactly what John had said, that Mike was just very open to them improvising. And I guess, as you explained, the nature of why they needed to. But they did have that rapport, and I think they're very proud of the fact that they improvised the cheerleader and the football fight, and everyone remembers
Absolutely
it. So
absolutely terrific, that scene, in my opinion. Really
and also the dream thing makes total sense now, that Melody always talks about this dream sequence that she got set up for, that she was like a green spider, and I was like, why would you call it a dream sequence? But now that makes sense.
And I have that spider shot. It's in the book.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I wonder what it would have been like if they didn't cut all that stuff out. I wonder what the film would have ended up like if they had their own way.
Well, the deleted scene storyboards are in the book, so you can work out yourself. I got the script pages, so you can kind of figure out where it should have gone. So the book has a chronology from the beginning to the end, and then what should have come next, and so on. But it's delicious.
Can I ask you a question?
I can't wait.
Cool. Go ahead, Lisa. Yeah, anything.
I'm so curious, because you mentioned that the rights took about 8 months, did you, to get for the book? How long did it take you to compile everything and find the people and the companies to get all the stuff from?
So it was October. I've been working on it since Comic-Con, so I knew we were going to try and do it from July, but we only actually got the license signed in October last year.
That's not very long.
That's not very long. So I was, because of my work as a documentary filmmaker doing investigations, I know how to get hold of people quick and shake them down for the right answers. Tell me the right thing. And so I delivered the final draft at the end of March this year. So from October to March, I went all hell for leather. But I set my office up, and it was just me doing it, but I set it up like a production office. So I had a strategy for the people I needed, the assets, how to get them scanned. But the real sting in the tail was this: King Features have to sign off every aspect of what I've written, and there's no guarantee they'll allow me to publish what I found. And a lot of what I found was not complimentary, and there's some profanity in the book as well. And so I was quite ready for them to put red lines through things. But no, from October to March, it was quite a whirlwind.
Was there anything that you couldn't put in then?
Nope, got everything.
Wow, that's great.
Wow.
Yeah, I got everything. Mostly things that haven't been seen before, or people said that doesn't exist. You're looking for photos that do not exist. So I spoke to Barry Nolan, who worked with the blue screen work with Frank van der Veer. Frank van der Veer is a very, very famous man for doing the world's biggest blue screens on films like King Kong. Barry Nolan worked on Dune with Dino, and Barry helped me extensively. I spoke to Martha De Laurentiis. She gave me lots of contacts. So I just found those assets. And because I kind of know the language of filmmakers and how they talk, put me in touch with other FX people. I spoke to Martin Bauer and Bill Pearson, sadly, before he died. So just got those people who didn't have lots, but they had like 2 or 3 pictures that were like solid gold. But the piece de resistance for me was that I got hold of Rob Siffo. Quick test, anyone who knows who Rob Siffo is, I'll give you a free copy of the book. He was the matte painter for the film. He did all the matte paintings.
I was about to say that.
I was going to say
I was just about to say it.
That's okay. Well, Lisa's getting a free copy of the book anyway because she's been brilliant with this.
I also bought one because I support people.
Thank you so much. You're a real diamond to do that. But I'm going to send you a signed one with a art card and a limited edition
I'll
bookmark
take it
and everything. Of course, you should. And so no, I got the hold of the matte painter, and he told me all the stories, and I saw the matte paintings before they were integrated into the film. He had photography of that, and he took his own high resolution photography around the set. And I was like, have you still got it? Yeah. Can I have it, please? Yeah. I was like, this is fantastic.
Oh, I should have met you before I did the documentary. Wasted.
Amazing. So, well, Lisa, I want to ask you a similar question then. I mean, was from your point of view, there's some additional material on the home media set, deleted scenes and whatever, but was there anything that you couldn't use in the final document you wanted to?
Photos that Bob
had,
which I presume have all ended up in the book, thankfully, so people can see them. But I just, with clearance, especially with photos, it's the person that took them that you need to get permission from, or you know, if it's owned by a production company. But there were just so many different avenues that I was trying to go down, and I couldn't get the right permissions to justify, and I didn't want to take a chance on using photos that I wasn't allowed to. So that would be really it. Bob's amazing collection of like press clippings and behind the scenes photos. But I mean, luckily I used that 14-minute clips from it, the behind the scenes little press video, I guess it is.
Yes.
But in terms of material that I had acquired that I wanted to
did you get to interview Seth MacFarlane?
No, he said yeah. I was told he said yes.
Wow.
So Sam had asked him. I was told he said yes. Like, I remember being in the Standard lobby in LA with a phone, waiting for the call. Someone said, right, we'll call on this number, and it just never happened. And it's so hard when you're in the UK trying to say, we'll do it anytime you can.
Sure.
As long as it can be within this window, and because there's only so many times you can keep flying back on a whim to try and get something. And his schedule I just couldn't make it.
I mean,
work.
he's in. Some people say he's integral to the more attention on that film, more attention on Flash, because of the stuff that he did in well, I can't remember the name of the film now. My brain's gone. Ted, yeah, because of the stuff he did in Ted, because he's a huge fan, right? So, do you think that's true?
I don't know, to be honest. I would have loved to have asked him many questions. Like, we were filming with Sam. I wanted to get on the set of Ted 2 because they were filming at the same time we were filming, but it didn't happen. But you know, I would have loved to have had him in it and asked him everything under the sun. Probably they'll say you've got 2 questions and 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But you can't get everyone. Obviously, there's people in the film that I didn't interview, even from Flash Gordon. Like, I didn't sit down with Ornella or Max von Sydow, but you hope that the people that are in it make up.
What about Dalton? Did you talk to Dalton?
No. Did I talk to Dalton? Yeah. Please. 9 times I reached out. I was like, I'll donate money to charity.
Oh, really? Oh, that's not good.
whatever. But I mean, fair enough. You can't make someone do it.
Yeah.
They had just said that he doesn't like to reflect on films in
Oh,
the
really?
past this way. You know, he's about looking to the future. So I did try, and it's funny. So many people always say to me, "Did you not think about getting Timothy Dalton?" I was like, "Yes, I really did. I really wanted to, but I, you know, when you're independent, you can't pay people to be in it. So I just have to go with the people that were happy to be in it. But I don't know, John, if you spoke to him. If I bowed down to you.
I spoke to Ornella Musi. She did me an extensive interview, so that was nice. And I did get through some sort of various contacts I've had. I do have comments that are in the book from Tim Dalton about the film. So through Edgar Wright as well. So I had Edgar ask him for me as well, and but sadly said no. But we have got new stuff from him in the book. So John Walsh, please can you talk about the poster art from Flash Gordon in 1980? I owned the UK paperback, and on the back was a painting I've never seen since. Do you know much about the artist Cesaro or Cesaro? All of the artists who are currently alive have been interviewed for the book, and all of the artists, so that's Philip Castle, who did the original teaser poster art. He also did Lad Insane for David Bowie and Full Metal Jacket for Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah,
he's been interviewed for the book. He's given me his artwork, the originals for us to see. The Hawkmen's Revenge is his teaser poster. Philip Noble, Lawrence Noble, I should say, who did the Queen artwork that's on the album cover and a one sheet for America. And Renato Casaro, who did the famous Italian stuff and for the rest of Europe. And Richard Amsel, who is the artist who most people prefer.
Raiders.
And he's the cover of my book. It's the Richard Amsel art. But interestingly, I got Alex Ross, who people know and love for all of his comic book art, to give his verdict on all of those artists in the book. And Alex has given us not only his own art, which you know and love, but the art he did the weekend after he saw Flash Gordon in 1980. So he's handwritten stuff on an exercise book. You can see the lines in the school book. So that's in our book as well.
If you watch Life After Flash, there's an interview with Renato.
There is
the brilliant interview, and he shows you, doesn't he, the big canvas and everything. So
and in fact, on the special features on the Blu-ray, there is an extended interview with him.
Certainly is.
Yes,
brilliant.
There's a lot of
that was fun to edit when I don't speak Italian.
Yes, yeah, I heard the subtitles are great. The subtitles.
Dino did that a lot, though, didn't he? Dino brought in a lot of wonderful Italian people. We think of Danilo Donato, the production designer, costume designer, and all his seamstresses that he brought in to do all of the costumes as well. And all these people, you hear all these negative things about Dino, which I always try and hit down because, being a producer myself, I know how difficult it can be working with these different people and the politics of it. But loads of people from Flash went on to work with Dino, not only behind the scenes, but in front of the camera. Max von Sydow went on to work on Dune. So there are lots of examples of people being loyal to Dino, and for good reason, I think.
Well, he can often work, and I mean, there's no other reason to, if people are offering you work and you're an actor, of course you're going to be loyal because you want the next job after that, don't you?
Yeah,
you do. That question, I can answer that. Yeah, Clytus appears at the end. He's in the book. And in the section about Queen, I've managed to get a. This is me like showing off. Someone's going to need to come in and slap me. We've managed to get an unpublished
go on, Lisa.
studio shot of all of Queen from 1980, and I got it from the good folks at Shinko Music in Japan. And it's an unpublished color shot, publicity shot of all of them, and wonderful Freddie wearing his Flash T-shirts. But it's from that section. It's a full page in the book because it's so beautiful.
Everything that was designed for that film was so spot on, wasn't it? I mean, from the album to the actual design of the logo, and just yellow at the back. And I remember going to school, going into a tube station and seeing the poster up. That poster where you're standing there and you've got the city at the back, and the Hawkmen flying, and those kind of posters when you're a kid just makes you want to go and see those movies. That's how well those things were designed. Today they're not really. I see some.
They're just talking heads with someone on a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like a bit like when the James Bond films were issued on VHS. They've done these little photo montages, and you're thinking, "What are you doing? I want to see Moonraker with him in his little tuxedo doing that in a little Baco foil suit. I don't want to see a photo montage."
But in those days, the posters were really clever. Like, I remember the same tube station going to school, seeing the Superman poster, and it just was the logo and a rainbow going through it. And when I saw that, I'm like, I want to see that. And then remember the Batman one where it's just the sign of the bat sign. And then same thing with Flash. I remember the Flash, just Flash Gordon with the little planet in the middle and on yellow. You know, they really did think about it in those days. Today, it's a bit weird. The posters they
so if we hence the yellow right we haven't done.
Yeah.
A lot of thought went into it. Yeah.
A lot of thought went into this. Absolutely what you were saying about the costume design. I mean, they are just amazing. The attention to detail in this was great. And again, they totally used the the comic strip as a template. I think what is interesting, if you again, I don't want to spoil things too. If you would documentary on the home release about Nicholas Roeg's version, they had obviously different costume and production designers involved in that stage, and it would have been a lot different. It was intended to be a much darker, more serious tone, but a definite move away from the comic book. I think this is the thing that Mike Hodges did so well, is he just basically to use the comic books as the reference. And I'm sure there's more of this in your book, John.
Well, basically, when Dino saw what the great Nicholas Roeg had done, Dino was busy on other projects, and Nicholas Roeg was working with John Richardson and a few others to create some artwork, production art. And it's, for those of you who know A Man Who Fell to Earth, the David Bowie film, that's why Nick Roeg was asked to direct Flash Gordon. And it seems like I can see why, because both films are science fiction. But, you know, if you're asking the guy who did that film to do his interpretation of Flash Gordon, then maybe it's not that big a surprise that the artwork he creates is something which is adult in both senses of the word. You know, it's adult in terms of it was going to be much more of a thinking film, but also adult in that it was going to be much more sexually explicit. And John Richardson described to me that one of the main spaceships was going to look like a big heaping mucus placenta, and because that's what Nick Roeg had described to the production designer it should look like. So when I spoke to Studio Canal when I started writing the book, they offered to give me some images they had on file for Flash Gordon. And I said to them, do you have any of the Nick Roeg stuff? And they said, what do you mean? I said, you know what the BFI won't give up. And they said, what are you talking about? I said, there's an unmade series of images from the unmade Flash that Nick Roeg worked on that were given to the BFI. And they're in their archive. And I've been trying to get in there to get them for the book, and it was tricky. 107 emails later, we find, and with the help of Studio Canal, could not have done it without Candy and Massimo from Studio Canal. So all praise to them. You know, the section in my book has all of those wonderful images because they went into bat for me, and then they done the extra on the Blu-ray. So all of the ones that you've seen on the Blu-ray are in my book, and about 24 others that are not on the Blu-ray are in the book, because there was extensive artworks done. The Lion Man is in there. The Hawkmen look like ravens. They look like really strange raven creatures. So that's all really exciting. So when Dino part company with Nick Roeg, Mike came on board. The reason Mike came on board, I can tell you this. Again, I feel like I'm betraying a confidence. Mike had been sacked from...
Nobody's watching. It's fine.
No. Remember the second Omen? Yes. Mike Hodges had been sacked from that, Damien Omen too. So he was looking for something to pay the bills. His sons were 9 and 10 years old. They loved Star Wars. This was like kind of Star Wars. And he did it because he needed the work. He was suddenly available. And he was a director of note. But having been sacked from The Omen, I asked him extensively about this. He was finding himself available. So the brief to continue the film in the line of the comic strip was Dino's command. It's the best way to describe it. This is my picture. I'm not going to do the accent. This is my picture, and I wanted you to do it like Flash Gordon in the comic strip. And Mike was like, right, you are, governor. Let's do this. Let's get on with it. So that's how it happened. So it was really Dino who brought everything back to the 1930s look and vibe. And when Danilo Donato came on, I can show you actually from the new book. I hope I'm not going to be in trouble for doing this. An image of...
let me big the screen. There we go.
Oh gosh, can we see that? There's some of the costumes. New photography.
We're all leaning forward.
I know.
Yeah. I'm trying to find a way that I can bring you. No, I can only do it for me. Yeah.
I can
let's go back to where we were. Sorry. Sorry, John. I don't know how to do that.
That's okay. Oh, okay.
I love the designs on this film. This is like,
oh yes, we can kind of see that.
Got proof of aliens. Look.
Wow. Wow. I suddenly want this for all the wrong reasons. There we go.
See, it's just again on the mic thing. I had been told during my interviews that the way Dino worked when Nick Rogue left, he was like, well, who can I get on board? And Mike was hired, and you might be able to clarify this or not. Mike was already on the payroll as second AD, because he was already on the payroll. That's why he was picked by
No.
Dino.
Mike was never an AD. An AD is a totally different role. So
no, I understand that. That's what
I think where the confusion was. It's not your mistake, Lisa. It's that Mike was going to be directing the second film. So he was the second director.
Maybe that's what this guy meant.
I think that's what he meant.
Got confused.
He said he was the assistant director. He's the director in waiting. He was going to be directing the second Flash Gordon film. Nick Rogue had recommended
makes more sense.
But that's the bizarre thing. If Nick Rogue had recommended him, and Dino was like, okay, if you've sacked Nick Rogue, you're not going to then take the guy who he's recommended, because you'd think, well, if he's like Nick Rogue as well, he might go off and do his own thing. But I think you're in a position where there aren't that many feature film directors who are going to be available at short notice. And luckily or unluckily, because he was sacked from The Omen, and for no fault of his own, it's I can tell you the story if you want to hear it, why he was sacked from The Omen.
Go for it.
Well, Damien Omen 2 is set in a kind of a West Point academy where young Damien is about to enter puberty and find out that he's the son of the devil. With a little dial tone on his head.
999666. Yeah.
And so Mike started shooting, and he was doing some of the early stuff with the actors. And the young lad who's playing Damien, there was a crucial scene in the opening of the film. And if you remember it, it's when somebody's calling his name, Damien, Damien, and a head turns and he walks through the sort of the center of the front of the college through a flame. And you can sort of pull focus between Damien and this flame. It's really effective sequence. Anyway, it took quite a while to set that up. Anyway, when they're in rushes the next day, the producer, Harvey Bernard, was in there, and he wasn't that happy that it was taking this long to get that one shot. And of course, if it's a complicated shot, it's going to take longer. If it's a sort of a standard dialogue shot, it'll take less time. Anyway, he got nervous and decided to basically shift Mike, because in the first kind of 7 or 12 days, there's often a get out in your contract for producers and directors. It's to do with the completion guarantee, so you can get a director out verbally within the first couple of weeks. And so Don Taylor from Battle of the Planet of the Apes, who was a friend of the producer, was brought in. Safe pair of hands. He finished the film. Interestingly, Mike co-wrote some of Damien, so he still gets money for it. Every single shot that Mike filmed is not only in the film but also in the trailer, because what he shot was so good. And it's like, he lives
on as a classic director, at least.
Oh, definitely.
It's hard, isn't it? Because when you've got a director with a lot of imagination and knows how to do a shot effectively, and then you have a producer that basically is just, looking at his watch about time and the money that's being spent, those two don't really mix, really, unless they're friends or the producer trusts the director 100%. So it sounds like he didn't trust him.
Between arts and commerce, without one you don't have the other. Without Dino you don't have Blue Velvet, and David Lynch also don't have June. So the producer's role, it sometimes unfairly portrayed as money men and these sort of conservative businessmen. But then sometimes it's true they are. So a lot of good films have been ruined by overproducing. But hey ho.
Yeah,
it's an important relationship. That they both need one another, and all the best films are where that they've got that combination. Welcome. Yeah, why not? Yeah.
yeah.
So
I feel like this can turn into like a therapy session now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
We've all got the right chairs.
Yeah, but it is nice to that you, John, had spent so much time talking to so many people, because it is hard when you're talking about these memories. Like, I don't really remember what I did yesterday, and you're asking these people what they did 35 years ago, and so to be able to have
their life, didn't it? Affected them in a way that I can remember.
But to be able to have these, like, such an in-depth look, because obviously you can do more with a book, I think is so valuable to the film and its legacy, which is really nice.
Thanks, Lisa. That's really kind of you to say. I went back and I challenged people on their versions of events, especially the actors who managed to aggrandize sometimes their memories and stories, because there's a vacuum when the producer and director aren't really going on the record. Dino's no longer with us, sadly, and Mike doesn't often talk publicly about Flash Gordon. So Mike had written a little piece for me in Harryhausen, The Lost Movies. He'd written a piece at the front. I got 6 well-known directors to tell me about their own lost movies and what it meant to them, and Mike was one of them. So it is tricky, but you sometimes feel like you're the investigating officer. You've dug up, it's the cold case, and you're going back and you're saying to people, where were you on the morning of? And somebody else has told me this, and somebody else has corroborated it. So I'm going to ask you again, can you rethink how many stitches you had, Sam Jones, from the fight that you said? Bernie Williams, who was the exec producer on Flash Gordon, went to the hospital, and so I had to challenge Sam on the story of how many people beat him up and everything else. So
wasn't it like 6? Or
it went from 6 to 12, and they were all.
Yeah.
And he didn't do anything, of course, and he hadn't started it, and I wasn't paying people to talk to me in the book, and it's kind of a thing I stick to, because if you do, then sometimes they're going to tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
But I was pleased. I got on very well with Sam in the end, and I think he saw it as an opportunity to get the record straight, and what happened with him and Dino 15 years later after Flash, and the phone calls they had, and how Dino felt about it right up until the end. Dino's businesses folded into each other, so Flash was lost as one of his titles. So there's kind of real mixed feeling. But the book is top and tailed by Dino, so you get his kind of final words at the end as well.
Yeah, and I think sorry.
No, I was just going to say as well that there is in the in your documentary, which I don't want to spoil for anyone, but there is a key moment about that in your documentary, which is great. So that was all I was going to say.
I don't spoil it for me.
Don't
see it.
I haven't got it yet. It didn't come.
I'd seen it before I was doing this book.
Yay!
Right. Okay.
But the frustrating thing about doing a documentary is, like, speaking to so many people, and you still want to make it, a good kind of 90-minute film, like an end-to-end. You want like beginning, middle, and end. And so it wasn't a case of just wanting to put everything that people said in and making some like 4-hour epic film. So it is kind of heartbreaking when stuff doesn't get in, but again, why the book is so great to kind of pad things out. But well, I hope you enjoy it.
I will definitely watch it when my copy comes. I'm still waiting. So I'll definitely watch it.
Out, isn't it? The Studio Canal 4K set sold out.
Yes.
Well, no. They said it was coming, so I'm waiting. I'm still waiting.
Who said?
There is a link. There is a link in the notes on my review page, and if you could use that would help immensely. And there's also a link there for John's book as well. So
guys, it'll be more than 6 months before they'll print more of them and get them into shops. So if you want it for this Christmas, it's only about £20 from Amazon, or you can buy it from TitanBooks.com. And I'll be doing a few signed ones as well. But
I think it's more expensive than £20 when I looked.
Was it? Oh, good.
Well, yeah, what I paid for it, well, it wasn't £20.
He's talking about the book. You're talking about the book.
Oh,
right?
I'm talking about the thing behind him. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. No.
This is 50 quid. This is 50 quid.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's more than
But
20
worth
quid.
every penny.
Oh,
definitely.
It's got well, look at my review online and it's
I was sent a free one. So
yeah. So Alan has asked John, is the Dune book on the horizon?
You're not the book guy.
Yeah, I'd love to do a Dune book. I mean, the thing is, I'm speaking to Titan about a couple of other books now. With this Flash Gordon book, there was a non-disclosure agreement where I wasn't able to speak to people about the fact I was writing it to start with. And then when I was speaking to people, I had to say to them, don't tell anyone I've spoken to you because I'm not really meant to talk about it. Even up until last month, Keith was saying to me, can you come on and do this? I said, yeah, I'd love to because I'm a chatterbox. But I had to check with all of the people involved that I'm allowed to because I'm not the rights holder on it. Yeah. And I'm glad I did because it's the first time I've been able to speak openly and freely about it. But there are other books on the horizon, and I've got Dune in my sights and a few others as well. So
amazing. So come on, Lisa. We're being asked here. We want to get more people to either watch your documentary or set or whatever. So any tantalizers there?
Oh, tantalizer. I mean, I guess information about the film, the making of, is probably quite widely known by now. There's some really personal, interesting insights into Sam's life that you can't read on the internet unless you maybe read like a review of the documentary and someone's mentioned it. But that would be what I would say. His life went more downhill than I could ever imagine. But I think then you also appreciate how he came back up the other side to where he is now. Yeah. So I think those kind of personal snippets.
It makes me want to see it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also,
I tried not to spoil it in my review.
The moment Peter Duncan realizes he's not in Alex Ross's artwork is the bit that I like. And then Alex Ross realized, and he was mortified.
Peter Duncan, because they had a section on Blue Peter when I think they had. Maybe I'm remembering this wrongly. They had behind the scenes when he was doing his thing. So on Blue Peter. So that's when I was a kid, I was like, oh, that's Peter Duncan, man.
He's so lovely.
Yeah,
really lovely. But no, Sam is in great shape. Reading his comments, Sam is amazing rope climbing and press ups, and he's got this tire. We went to his house to hang out with him, and he's got this massive tractor tire that he just smacks with this sledgehammer, and you watch him and I can't even lift the hammer up, and that's what he does, like make sure your posture's right and squat. And it's pretty funny.
Wow,
he's actually more muscly now, isn't he, than when he played the part? So
never seen anything like it. It's incredible. I mean,
did he dye his hair, by the way?
Blonde. Yes. And he was a ginger, a bit like me. He was a ginger when some of it went a little bit Pete Tong. That's in the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Early publicists before to production with him and Dell, and it does. His hair literally looks it looks really.
Yeah.
Well, didn't they? Melody's got blonde hair and they dyed it brown, and Sam, vice versa. So
incredible casting, because I said I remember watching the show on Saturday mornings, the original one, is it? And then watching the film, the casting's spot on. Let's face it, from Flash to almost everyone that we knew, it's great, great casting.
I think when you can come away from a film and say, I can't imagine anyone else in those roles, then you've done something right. And you can't, and they still love it and they still embrace it. And how awful if you cherished a film so much and the actors were like,
there are actors. Yeah, exactly. They're actors of that time that that will be ingrained in your memory forever, like Chris Reeves as Superman, Linda Carter as Wonder Woman, Sam Jones as Flash. I mean, if they made a Flash, which I hear they're making, I wonder who they're going to get cast as Flash, and whether he's gonna take their mantle off Sam. But I can't imagine anyone playing it but Sam. Tell you the truth,
No.
but
well, Dino could. Dino was ready to recast.
Well, yeah.
So Dino, before Sam walked, he was
Right.
thinking about for the next picture, he's not having Sam Jones back, and he's going to continue with, if not Mike Hodges, someone similar. And he was like ready for the second and third film. There was even a suggestion that they weren't going to strike the sets. Striking the sets is where you demolish everything, move it out, so you're not charged any rental. And there was even talk of not striking the sets. Because they were going to hold things over and just go straight into the next one. But it's hard to imagine. I mean, it's unfair to say.
Said that though, when word came out that Heath Ledger was playing the Joker, the amount of trolling him on social media. So I always think back to that and go, you know what? If someone is cast, give them a chance.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
But
I agree.
You never know.
This is the time we live in now, isn't it? Where everybody gets slagged for some reason.
Cancel someone and they go, actually, maybe they're okay.
yeah, definitely.
But I think it is such a bummer.
Sorry, Keith, go on.
I can agree on this one that it was definitely flash lightning with this film. It's it just works incredibly well, and I don't know. I'm just fond. I find it hard to criticize a film, really, but.
Yeah.
Well, there's a commercial reason here as well. If you think about it from a Studio Canal's point of view, they spent a ton of money restoring this library title, which is what the industry would call this, a library title, in 4K. There's other films from the same period that have not had a 4K restoration.
True.
Superman 2, Star Trek the Motion Picture, Saturn 3. Final Countdown, Clash of the Titans,
the Black Hole.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders hasn't got a 4K thing?
No, there's no 4K.
Oh, holy
UHD.
crap.
So, it's
there
a
is
badge
something
of
wrong
honor.
with the world.
The good folk at Studio Canal aren't doing this just to keep us happy. I wish they were. They're doing it because they know it's a bit like Harryhausen titles. There's money to be made again from us going back and buying it again. And they were right. And it's worth doing it and preserving it for the future. But commercially, the film is coming alive. It is a badge of honor to where this film is now 4K UHD. We think of blue ticks. If there was a blue ticks for UHD films, this would be getting it on IMDb because it now has a status that's UHD.
It makes me so happy.
But it is though, isn't it? Because it's very expensive. And, that's great. They've invested in that film in that way. So
Yeah.
Well,
there was some
as we're here,
time anyway.
Gordon.
Gordon's alive.
Which is
was going to say.
Gordon is live. Gordon is is brought us here today, and the home release is well worth the investment for anyone who's a real fan. So okay, I am conscious of time. We've been going for about an hour and 45, but just a few quick questions for you before we wrap it up. Is what is next for you, Lisa? What's next on the horizon for you?
I am doing a series of life after documentaries. So all along the same vein, where it celebrates a classic film but has like a biographical look at the star. So we are in post-production, and it should be out November. This November is Life After the Navigator. So Flight of the Navigator.
I
cool.
kind of like that film.
Super
I like
excited.
Navigator.
So Joey Kramer.
That's one of your childhood films, isn't it?
I know. So Joe, I mean, the thing, independent film, it's so hard, and you have to put so much effort into it. You have to do it about films that you love, otherwise you'll never do it. So, so Joey Kramer, obviously, if anyone Googles him, you'll see what happened to him. But again, like Sam, you can only Google so much, and so we look at what happened to him, how he got where he ended up. But I'm really excited about that one. And then we've also started filming for Life After Atreyu, which is Noah Hathaway and the Neverending Story. So we were supposed to go back out this year to film with him, but obviously we were locked down, so I've been editing instead, and then we'll pick that up again next year. But we've done some interviews, and thank you to John to connect me with Colin Arthur, who designed and built Falcor and the Rockbiter and all the creatures, and we saw Falcor's head, and it was super exciting. So that's next on the cards, and we'll build that into a bigger brand.
Good luck with that.
Thanks, I'm excited.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And what about you, John? Is there anything coming up that you can tell us about, or are you on another topless project?
I'm how can I say? I might be working with King Features on something, but I can't tell you what it is. We got on very well. I get on very well with
It's so hard to
corporations.
market, isn't it, when you can't? It's like, I want to tell everyone.
He's under contract.
Yeah.
So, well, no, this is the thing, because this is contracts on its way. So I've got one of my old films on Amazon Prime, Tory Boy the movie, controversial political film from 2010. That's feature doc. You can see there, and I'm getting some of my other stuff up there as well. And it's going to be a new book. I'm working on a new documentary for the BBC at the moment, about unpublished photos. In a general sort of way, but and I'm writing a new film as well, which is quite exciting. So I had some interest in that. It keeps me really busy. I've not had a lockdown, thank you very much, in the traditional sense, because I've been sort of working every day, and because I work for myself in a kind of a bubble where it's mostly me and just a few others. And I've done that really for decades now. Despite my youthful appearance, I'm incredibly old. So you just get on with it, And as Lisa said, independent film is difficult, but
tell me about it.
Most of my work is commissioned work, but even that's difficult because relationships with broadcasters are kind of are tricky. It's like holding an ice cream in the sunlight.
It's a good way to describe it.
Happening. Yeah. So I'm excited for the future, and the book is out on the 27th of October. I'll be doing a 4K screening of Flash, either on the anniversary or before. In London.
So wow!
Come and see that.
I want to be there.
You're going to
post all the details,
John, right?
Absolutely. I'm doing a Flash Gordon podcast as well, so you can find that Flash Gordon, the official story of the film. There's a Facebook page for it. There's a SoundCloud. There's a YouTube thing where I speak to people like Studio Canal Restoration Team, the poster people who did the new poster. My book only goes up to when the film was released and stops, so I wasn't able to get merch in and all that because we get too much stuff from the film. So maybe there's another book to be done on Flash Gordon of the merch and everything else. But
you be the man to do it.
Absolutely.
I'll be much too busy. I'll be.
And what about you, Ian? What about you, Mega Geek? What is what's next for you?
Nothing. No, not really. Well, I'm writing, as you know. I'm trying to get another film off the ground. I have. I just finished a web series, as you know, award-winning web series called Rebecca Gold. If you go to the YouTube channel, write in Rebecca Gold, you'll be able to find it. I also have my very first feature film that I shot. It's on there for free. It won an awards. It was very well received. My first feature film, The Killing Zone. So if you ever get a chance to, if you've got 93 minutes spare, watch my film, Killing Zone.
Good length.
Yes, it is. It is.
Thanks,
it is.
Paul.
Here you go. Well, there's a there you go. Paul is.
Can I do a mini? Sorry.
She said that she could play Dale.
Yeah. Can I do a mini plug for my new YouTube show?
No.
I'm going to before this ends. We've started a Life After Movies web show. So if you Google Life After Movies, the web show, we're on like episode 13, but we interview people like Sam and Noah Hathaway and Joey Kramer, and it's like a place where we can celebrate 80s, 90s, and 70s films. So subscribe, yay! Well, and also, if this is live, we have a competition running to win the 4K 5-disc box set of Flash Gordon. Go there now and enter, because we draw it on Sunday morning. So
you should have said this before.
Get that sold out box set.
Where do people go?
If you search, I don't have a specific name for it, but if you search Life After Movies presents the web show, you'll find it.
Okay.
So, and also if you go to the Life After Flash Facebook page, you'll see I've posted the link. So the competition is still running.
That's good. I'm giving away books on the Flash Gordon Facebook page. You have to go and have a look and see what the latest thing is, because I'm not sure what they've put on there. But it's just you only have to like it. We don't have any tricky questions. We just say to people, like it, and you'll be randomly chosen for a signed copy. So.
Yay!
Wow.
Plug.
So plug away. I mean, that's what this is for. Plug away. Absolutely. Absolutely. So if people want to get in touch or find more of your work, is it just through those avenues that you've said, or is there else? Lisa?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one in true independent fashion that does all the social as well. So like if you message the Life After Flash page, that's me, or my Instagram is Lisa N Downs, DOWNS.
I shall
But
be
yeah,
joining.
or come message, say hi. I reply.
You do, hence why. So that's good.
I do.
There you go. John, what about, where can people reach you?
Yeah, you can find me. You can sort of find all my film and TV work at walshbros.com and also johnwalshfilmmaker.com. If you just Google John Walsh Filmmaker, it all spills out all the various links and stuff. And I do reply when I can. So, but please don't send me scripts. I can't look at scripts, unfortunately. But it's always good to hear feedback.
You'll get sued.
Well,
Yeah.
I can't, you can't read stuff because it's unsolicited, so you can't.
I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook. I'm easy to find. It's either under the Mega Geek or Ian David Diaz. You can find me easily. And I
had to put that one up.
Keith is the best character in Rebecca Gold.
Well, you know, hey, why not? So that's great. Yeah, and obviously the channel here is Media. And put out home media reviews every week. I've got one coming this Friday, so please tune into that and subscribe to the channel, like and add comments and all of that sort of thing. That would be fantastic. So I want to thank. First of all, I want to thank everybody on the live stream this evening. There's too many people here to name individually, but thank you so much for everyone's comments. I tried to get to as many of them as I could. This is my first time this, so a little overwhelmed, but
You've done very
thank you
well.
so much. Thank you. So please do, this will be available as a video cast or vodcast or whatever it's known as. You know, so if you know of other people that will find it interesting, please get to have a watch of that. And it just leaves me, seriously, guys, I couldn't have hoped for a better panel for my first episode. I really, really appreciate from the bottom of my heart the time that you've given. I think we've done a really in-depth dive into this film. Probably about it, but I am conscious that we don't want to be long film. And we're approaching the running time. So thank you so much to everyone. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. I learned so much from John, particularly with your book gossip. I'm so excited to read it.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you. Well, you're the perfect market for it. So people who think they have seen everything and they're like, oh, what else is there left to know about Flash Gordon? You know, I hope people will flick through the book and go, oh, I might buy this.
Yeah, will.
Thanks.
There you go.
Thanks, John.
You,
Thank you ever so much. And
good to see you too, Ian. First time meeting you, so good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to see you guys, and so much passion coming out of you guys. It's amazing that
Yay!
It's
great film.
I can't wait to see your documentary, and I'll probably buy your book, John. So there
Thank
you
you very much. Well, we should agree to come back a bit like that film. We should agree to come back for the 50th anniversary, and we see what stories, which screens are going to be blank, if at all, or any additional screens. It'd be like a crazy Brady bunch. But let's maybe do that for the 50th.
Exactly, and then I can do life after the home media.
Life after home. There you go. No, that's great. Thank you. You know, I tried to reel it in. I do tend to talk a lot, but you guys had such interesting stuff that it's nice to sit back and listen. So thank you again.
And he had more than me. So there you go. Those two.
There you go.
Guys. Amazing information that I got from both of you. Seriously, great stuff.
We try.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, to an end, and
bye,
so much
everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Spread the word.
Bye. You got to switch off the switch. Oh, here we go.